Okay. All right, we'll just give it a minute for everyone to come in. I'll watching the participants come in. Okay, so we've got 46 in now, so I'll go ahead and start just the introduction. Welcome everyone to Maze Live. Thank you for attending today. You are in the class Enhancing Employee Engagement, Strategies for Thriving Workplace, that will be presented by Carol Atwood. Before we jump into the session, I just need to go through a few housekeeping items. First and foremost, please note that this session is being recorded. Also, for any questions that you have related to the session, please utilize the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. Please feel free to ask questions throughout, and we will pause to answer them throughout the class when it's a good time to do so. And if you prefer to pose your question anonymously, there is an option to do that. For any technical concerns, please utilize the chat button at the bottom of your screen, and we will do our best to help you address that if it is something on our end. Please note you should have received a PDF handout of the slides via email. We will also post it here in the chat. And then if you don't see it, please post in the chat and then we can get it out to you. Polling questions in order to get CPE credit for attending this session. Please make sure to respond to the polling questions that will be throughout the class. In order to get the CPE credits, you do not have to respond correctly, you just have to respond. If for any reason you're having difficulties clicking on the polling questions or you don't see them when we talk about it, please type your name in the chat function to let us know that you are there so that we can track your attendance. Lastly, for a survey, at the end of the session, there will be a survey link posted in the chat. We'd appreciate if you could please respond to that. You'll click on it and it'll come up. And please note that is the same link for all classes. So if you are attending multiple sessions, you'll see the same survey. But please make sure to respond to all of them. We will also send out a thank you email to all attendees after Maze Live is completed, which will also have the survey. And then the CPE certificates will be emailed to you within 2 weeks after you have completed the survey. So now I'm happy to introduce Carol Atwood. Carol is a seasoned public sector executive with over 25 years of leadership experience across finance, HR, IT, water and wastewater, and parks and recreation. She has held key roles at Dublin San Ramon Services District, as well as the city of Cupertino, where she oversaw diverse operational areas and frequently served as the interim city manager. A CPA and former KPMG consultant, Carol brings both private and public sector expertise to her strategic, results-oriented work. She holds a BS in Business Administration from Cal State University East Bay and is a graduate of the Harvard Kennedy School Executive Program and CEPO's Train the Trainer program. And so now I'll turn it over to Carol to give you employee engagement strategies for a thriving workplace.
Thank you, Vicki.
You're welcome.
Good morning, everyone. I want to thank you for taking this class. I know it's a little different than a GASB 101 or 102, but I will try to make this entertaining for you as well as productive for you, because employee engagement is a lot more than just fun and games. And so today what I want to talk to you about is understanding employee engagement, assessing it for your organization, what your role is as a supervisor, strategies to boost the employee engagement, and sustaining that engagement over time. So let's understand employee engagement. I've always wanted to use this slide. This is the perfect opportunity. At my last job at DSRSD, one of my other duties as assigned was to be the landlord of the district office. And what that translates to is when I got a complaint about the district office, I had to deal with it. So I used to get complaints pretty regularly from the engineering department about things like people aren't cleaning up their dishes, and one was people are putting their hands in the ice machine. So I figured instead of going and talking to someone, I would use some humor and send out some emails. And I found this one of Elmo from Sesame Street with his hands up. And I sent it to the district office and said, look, Ma, no hands, especially when you're getting ice out of the ice machine. And it solved the problem. So that was my mantra when I had issues and complaints from employees about others. But it kind of came back to get me because we had an engineer, and in their exit interview, they said I was condescending because of my emails. So HR came to my office and said, hey, you might want to consider. And I thought about it for a while and said, thank you. And then I realized that I had only been communicating with this engineer who I had never worked in any other area by my email only, which is 7% of my communication. And he didn't know what else I did. So I could see his perspective. So that was the con of the emails. But the pro was he read it. And he obviously, if he was that employee that they were complaining about, which I never got a name, it was effective. So it's not just fun and games, is my point as far as employee engagement. And you can try to make it fun and lighthearted so people remember things more, but realize that there's a whole other area to employee engagement that we want to talk about today. And I like to tell my husband I was called pretty instead of just pretty annoying. So, what's the definition of employee engagement? Employee engagement basically is the amount of involvement and enthusiasm your employee has, not only for the work that they're assigned, but also for the organization. And if you understand what drives it, there are so many benefits that can come to your organization through increased productivity, um, wellness for the employee, improved morale, and better employee retention rates, which right now we all know that that is a concern in our industry. When I was in my real job, instead of my consulting job, if I could keep an employee for 2 years, I was happy. I had a lot of employees jump out after a year. If it's too stressful or they just don't like the work, they today have no problem jumping to another organization and usually getting more money. So anything I can do from an employee engagement perspective to keep that employee after I've trained them up for a year, then that is all gravy to me, and I will take it in a heartbeat. So, who drives employee engagement? Well, for the supervisors in the room, welcome to management. 70% of employee engagement is driven by supervisors. You have to build trust, you have to communicate, model that behavior, walk your talk, and try to build a positive environment with more than just the fun and games, but in your constant experiences and encounters with your employees. And from what we've found through engagement surveys, if you set clear expectations and a realistic workload, provide them a lot of training like you're getting today, and you have a supportive workplace, then employee engagement can go up. And it's important because if you look at these benefits per the Gallup poll, there's really no excuse to not do employee engagement, except it does take time. And I know you guys are swamped, but it really is a benefit to not only your sanity, but your employees as well. It increases absenteeism, which I'll say is sick leave or maybe being out on a workers' comp claim, by 78%. That's huge. Um, They feel they have a higher well-being by over 70%. It reduces safety injuries and thus your absenteeism by 63%. Lowers turnover rates by 51%. And as I said, we have so much turnover right now in our industry and especially in finance. I will take those percentages. Reduction in theft of 28%. I don't know if you have public works or operational facilities, but we always used to lose small tools and just small office supplies. This will help with that. Enhances productivity by 14 to 18%. I've seen statistics of up to 30% in that category, and it gives you better customer satisfaction. So gone are the days when an employee looked at the job as just a job, where they were told about their weaknesses, not their strengths. They regretted and did not look forward to their annual review. We were bosses, not coaches, and they looked for a paycheck. Now they're looking for validation. They're looking for growth and development. They want ongoing conversations with their supervisor, and they want to concentrate on their strengths. Because let's face it, by the time you have an employee come and work for you, their weaknesses are probably their weaknesses. You want to find out what their strengths are and capitalize on those strengths so that they can have wins in your organization. So now we're going to go and pulling to question number 1.
Okay, I'll launch poll 1.
And Whitney, on my screen, I'm just seeing the first choice. I don't know if the participants can see all 4 choices.
They shouldn't be able to. It should just be employee engagement number 1.
Okay.
That's what you see, right?
I just see on who am I, it just gives one answer.
Oh, you have to scroll down a little
Okay.
bit. Yeah.
Okay.
And then you see looks like 90% have answered.
Oh, good.
So I think if it's okay with you, I'll end it. Okay, I'll share results.
Hey, you guys are doing good. They actually get harder.
And you don't have any questions in the chat, Carol?
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay. And I am not having my slides respond. So Whitney, is the poll done?
Yes, the poll is done.
Okay, because my slides aren't advancing, so.
Okay, I will be right there.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to go ahead and while we're waiting for the technology to catch up with us, how do you assess the current engagement levels? And unfortunately, again, because we've done polls on this, and the Gallup poll has the following statistics for you. And unfortunately, thank you so much. There's only 21 to 30% of your employees that are going to be actively engaged. Now, these are the people that come to work and they're ready. You think they've probably had 5 cups of coffee before they walk through the door, but they're happy, motivated people, and they are a pleasure to work with. There's that group in the middle that's really not engaged, but they are there, and you can get them to the point where you'd like. That's about 45 to 52%. And then there's the actively disengaged group of people, which is 17 to 38% of your staff. And they're also called the cave dwellers. And that stands for consistently against virtually everything. So if you're on the bottom of that rung, you're probably looking at disciplinary issues. You might want to give them additional coaching, ask them what they really want to be when they grow up, and try to get them into a situation where they're happy. But for the most part, it's an uphill battle, and it has to be applied consistently if you really want to embrace employee engagement. And how do you do that? If you go to seminars, you're usually told you should do surveys. Surveys can cost some money. You will not necessarily like what you get out of a survey, at least the first survey that you do. And it does take time to put together. And then you have to continue to do it to assess your impact of what you're doing with the organization on an annual basis. You can do interviews. A lot of people have adopted stay interviews, where with your evaluation or mid-year, you might want to ask your employees, why are you still here? What draws you to this organization? Why do you like working for us? What would you improve? And then some people have, at DSRSD, we had focus groups. We had a management group that was in charge of employee engagement. And so we looked to see what the employees would like us to implement, and we tried to do that and constantly look at change. And it included training, it included annual potlucks, that fun and games portion, but it also did include mentoring and training for the next promotion and other things that they had told us they wanted to do. And I will always say the best way to assess the engagement of your employees, though, is management by walking around. You will see things that you can't see otherwise. And this goes back to the old cliche that 55% of communication is body language, 38% is tone, and 7% is the written word. And I know there's been studies recently that pull that 93% down to more like 66%. But I think that's kind of what we live in these days, where people are so on their phones and so on their computers that they really don't understand the richness of just walking around and saying hello to people and making that eye contact and seeing if they look like they're having a good day. And if not, ask them how it's going. You can pick up a lot of information when you do that. It's valuable, and it doesn't cost you anything except your time. So Maslow put together a hierarchy for employee engagement, and it goes something like this. Your disengaged employees are at the bottom, and the survival is simply, I'm here for the money. And the second tier up, I'm here for the money and the job security. So they're not going to put themselves out. They might not be happy about coming to work. They might be verbally unhappy about not coming to work, which doesn't help you. But that's the group that you kind of have to watch and keep under control, because negativity can breed within your organization. And if you want to keep focused on that employee engagement piece, you want to kind of nip that in the bud. And if it's a legitimate concern, then take care of it on a timely basis so that it's not a complaint anymore. Your third tier is belonging. You have employees that are kind of there, kind of not. But if they got another job offer with more money, they'd hop in an instant. So because you want to keep them retained in your organization and be a valued member of that team, you want to pay attention to these people, because they're not giving you any problems and they are getting the work done, but they really aren't buying into that enthusiasm about the job and the organization just yet. And then your top layers are what's their importance in the organization? Do they feel valued? If someone does all the work to get you to a staff report and in front of your council or board, do you even offer them the opportunity to do the presentation to the council and board? They might be scared to death to do it, but then you put your coach hat on and you help them through that. So you stretch them and let them learn. And more importantly, they get the recognition before the governing body, and that helps them with their career path. So it's all good stuff. And then you got your top layer of employees that they love working there and they are happy and it's the industry they want to work in and life is good. So as a supervisor, and even if you're not a supervisor, it's important to identify the areas of improvement so you can get to better employee engagement. One of the things we have to work on these days and can't avoid is the workloads and the deadlines. Finance in particular has been extremely pressed with all of the ERP conversions going on, with the new regulations, the new reporting requirements, the new phase of staff turnover and hiring up, and then you have a vacancy again. So you have to have the organization respond to that and be a little strategic and know, are people and already announcing they're going to retire at the end of the year? Well, how are you going to backfill that and train that new employee that comes on? What's your strategy to make life as good as possible for the employees there and for you? You need to have that deadline chart for at least a year out so that you know when you're going to need extra help or people are going to have to work overtime, or you might want to bring in some retired annuitants or some consultants, or ask your auditors if they can come in and help you out a little bit, just to get that workload at a nice even keel. What's your performance review program look like? I'm in a client right now and I heard somebody talking about rating of numbers. 8 years ago, the last company I was at, we did away with the numbers. And the reason we did is because we wanted performance to be a continual dialogue with an employee, so that if they did something wrong, they got instant feedback on how to get it better. But if they did something right, they got those kudos throughout their normal month and years of work. There were no surprises in the employee evals. And then at the bottom, it was just meet expectations or doesn't. You know, I would never rate my husband on a 1 to 5 scale in different areas because I know how that would go over. So why do you do it to your employees still? You might want to consider really looking at the evaluation and performance program and making it more communicative, but less difficult to have those conversations. You want to assess your culture. Will they let you bring in extra help to get over those peaks and valleys of the workflow? And what is your department's engagement number now? And then, as I said, you need to add some strategies to keep your employees not just treading water. And then you start from the bottom up. You start with those basics. Are your employees paid enough? Are they working as an individual, or have they put their toe into that lake for team player? If they're at a team level, yay for you. And then what do they want to do with their next job career, and how can you help them get there? So, strategies to boost employee engagement. You want to create a positive culture. If you guys ever look at TED Talks, go look at this one. It's about 10 minutes long. Laughter is good for you. It'll help you out in any day's situation. It's Happy Secret to Better Work by Sean Edgar. And what he says is, if you can provide a positive and happy environment, you're going to increase your productivity, because your brain is not in a negative, neutral, or stressed environment by 31%. That's huge. So your outlook, not only at work, but when you get home, is going to be so much better. And it also increases accuracy by 19%, at least for doctors. So why can't we be in that pot as well? Our jobs in finance have to be accurate. So if you can find a way to encourage just that clear thinking and accuracy and positivity, hey, go for it. It'll take 10 minutes for you to look at the TED Talk. I would strongly recommend it. And then celebrate whenever possible, and especially when people are stressed. You can hold birthday parties for people. I wouldn't hold individual birthday parties because that's a heck of a lot of work. I would go to quarterly, and that way they're kind of all treated the same. So no one is real popular and gets a huge celebration versus somebody that maybe is disengaged and doesn't get the recognition. Recognize promotions if an employee has a milestone, special occasions, and provide team building opportunities, because all that stuff counts. So if you don't know your employee's birthday or anniversary date, get a list from HR, and when you're on a plane someday or you're vegging in front of a TV, instead of doing that, enter it in your phone, in your calendar, and have it come up every year, and send them a little email congratulating them on their job anniversary or on their birthday. It means a lot, and it doesn't take you that much time to input it into your calendar. So little things like that make a big difference. I mean, I have a client right now that all throughout the summer, they have a celebration to bring their employees together. This was one of their Fridays in June, week 3. And they had a fruit buffet, and then they had a team scavenger hunt. You know, they did it at lunch. It didn't take a lot of time, although it does take planning. The initial reason they started to do this is they wanted to get people to use SharePoint. So not only did they train people up on going to SharePoint for a cool thing that they could participate in, but they also did something to celebrate and to have some fun as a team. So kudos for them. That this admin that is putting this together is simply amazing. And I'm in awe at all the things she comes up with. I saw these great pumpkins, believe it or not, when I went to a doctor's appointment. So I had to take a picture because if I'm ever in a pumpkin carving contest again, I'm going to use one of these. They're great. But you can see these kind of things in your normal life to give you ideas on what you want to bring back to the workplace. And of course, potlucks and birthday parties are a must. They're easy. People bond around food. And so put it in your workplace and go for it. The easiest thing to do, if you really want to know, is to do little icebreakers before your meetings. You can have each person introduce themselves and say something that no one knows about them before you move on. It probably takes 5 or 10 minutes of your meeting, and they've learned something about their coworker. One of the times we had an all-employee meeting, I had employees line up by date of hire. It's amazing how much dialogue and laughter goes on in a room like that when you're trying to figure out who was hired right before you and who was hired right after you, and who's the oldest employee that's been at the organization in the room. And it lightened the place up so that when we could talk about other business issues. The 2 most fun things we ever did is we had an eclipse potluck. We bought the glasses, we had a viewing, we had a group picture, and then we had a nice potluck. Takes a little planning. I checked for you guys, there's no eclipses coming up anytime soon, but I think there's one in 26 if you want to consider it. And then we had a blind coffee tasting contest. And I will remember that I had a HR intern helping me with it who didn't know who the GM was. And after the GM took 6 tastes of his favorite coffee, the intern walked up to him and said, "I'm sorry, sir, but you can't have any more tastings because you already had 6 and we have to save it for somebody else." And the GM turned to me and said, "Does he know who I am?" And I said, "Yes, you're the guy that took 6 tastings of coffee number 2. So play with it. But again, as my story with the engineer on his way out said, I was pretty annoying. Don't play with it too much where that's just what you think engagement is, because it isn't. So now we're going to go to polling question number 2.
All right. I will release. I launched poll number 2. All right. I will end the poll and share the results.
Hey, you guys are still doing good. Okay. What I want you to do now is go grab a paper and a pencil or pen, because we're going to play a little engagement exercise that's going to take about 5 minutes. But you can do it in a meeting, and your employees are going to learn something from it. And for the people that just played this, that are in the audience, don't let on what's going on. But I think you'll have some fun with it. So I'm going to give you just a little bit more time. Okay, yay, my slide advanced. Okay, on your screen, you're seeing 3 coins. What I want you to do is take your paper and I want you to write down very quickly about 8 things you observe with the coins. And I can't give you examples because it'll ruin the exercise. So just tell me what you see. I'm going to give you about a minute. Okay, I'm going to give you about 10 more seconds. Okay, so now I want you to look at what you wrote down. And if your statement deals with things that are similar about the coins, so examples would be they're all silver, they're all round, they're all money, they add up to 40 cents. They all have a president on them. Then I want you to put an A by that statement. And if your statement talks about things that are different with the coins, they're different denominations. One is really shiny and the others aren't. There's 2 heads and 1 tail. They're different sizes. Then I want you to put an S next to that statement. And then what you should see with your list is a pattern. If you start out with A's, most people then will go to S's and then come back to an A's. And the same is true for people that start out with an S, then about halfway down their list, they'll have an A statement, and then they'll go back to an S. What the A stands for in this case is Annie Warbucks, very positive. When she approached anything in life, she was, it's gonna work out. The sun will come out tomorrow no matter what. And S stands for Sherlock Holmes, where he wants to get involved and see what's going on and find the clues to make him solve the mystery. A lot of us are trained to respond to this game in different ways. If you are in finance, if you're a lawyer, if you are an engineer, you're probably going to have a list that starts with S's because during your schooling, you've been trained to find out what the problem is to make sure that the thing can be accurate. If you are in Park and Rec, if you are just an extremely positive person, and when somebody presents an idea to you or you have an issue in front of you, you believe that it's going to be okay and it's a great idea, you're probably going to start out with A's. But the training in this very simple exercise, which I recommend that you do not only with your coworkers, but with your significant others and your kids, is to let you understand how the other person is looking at a problem or an issue, because it isn't necessarily the way you look at the problem or issue, for one. And it doesn't mean that if you're looking at it from an Annie point of view and they're looking at it from a Sherlock point of view that they hate your ideas. It's just they've been trained to figure out what's wrong with it so that it will be successful. And your reaction is, oh, it's a great idea, but you need their feedback so that you don't get whacked when you go with the idea and then you haven't thought about things you should be thinking about. You want to develop teams at the workplace that have both A's and S's because it makes your whole team better because of it. And so again, it's part of employee engagement. It also provides training for people that is beyond the workplace and can be taken to their own personal lives. So find things like this. You can search the internet for icebreakers and find these all the time. Make your staff meetings enjoyable so that people want to come to them. Make them so that you're actually progressing the person in their own knowledge about themselves and others so that they can have a better time in work and life. So one example, I hope you go home and use it because it's kind of fun and it will lead to some pretty good conversations. Okay, another big part of employee engagement is, as we saw early on, people want to feel like you care about them and you want to help them progress in their career. So one thing you want to do is offer them professional development opportunities like what you're doing today. And that way you grow and you feel more confident because you know what you're doing. So send to training conferences. May is Live is every year. They always put on a great program. CSMFO also has great conferences every year, and GFOA, I think, is next week. But CSMFO also has training from basic governmental accounting classes all the way up. And some they charge for and some are free. So this last month, I believe they had capital assets. And capital assets were a big deal in the 80s and 90s. A lot of governments hadn't recorded their capital assets. It's a big deal again. A lot of governments haven't kept up on recording their capital assets. So if you're in the middle of a computer conversion, you're not looking forward to that capital asset module going in because probably your old system doesn't balance your subsystem to your GL. And now you've got a big, huge mess that you have to clean up. So training can help you do that. If you have the opportunity to put your people into acting assignments, or if you see an acting assignment coming up, volunteer to do it. It's a great way to stretch yourself and realize what the person above you is doing, and lets you actually drive the car for a while and see if you want that job. And if you do, talk to your supervisor about it so they can help prepare you to be as competitive as possible when that job actually comes up to be filled. You can ask to work on interdepartmental teams. If you have someone that's just been working individually, get them on an interdepartmental team. It will help them in their own way of looking at the organization, give them other kinds of connections in other departments. It's all good. And finance needs to be at the table on a lot of these teams much more than they currently are. In the past, they kind of were in their little area, and nobody really thought about finance because we always kept everything going and things were on time. And now with all the new requirements and everything else that comes down, some of us get a little behind. And so this gets you out into the organization so they can actually see who finance is. There's a management talent exchange program that goes on, I think, every year, maybe every other year, with the counties of San Mateo and Santa Clara County. You have to apply for it. You actually go to another organization for 3 months, and it might be in a completely different field. And then that organization or another can send a body to you for 3 months. And it's a great way to stretch and learn, and especially if it's in an area that you haven't been able to do. We had a PIO once that just never stayed on budget. So we actually sent him to the city of Sunnyvale for 3 months in the budgeting department. And every time after he came back, his budgets were great. He stayed on track because he just had a different experience on why that budget was so important for an organization. So not only does the participant learn, but you actually can get some real benefit out of it. I mentioned presentations to councils and boards. Those are scary for people. I used to say, I'm going to be at the board meeting. Do you want me to present? Or since you did all the work, do you want to get the credit and present? And I'll help you practice, and I'll help you write the staff report and teach you how to take it all the way from staff report through the agenda process to the presentation. It's a really great growing experience for people, and you should give them the recognition if they did all the work. So consider it, and it's going to take you a little more time, but they will feel good about themselves at the end, and you will have a much higher level employee because of it. There's leadership academies out there, really good leadership academies for 9 months usually. And I've seen them industry specific. Central Sanitation has one every other year. And Alameda County, Santa Clara County, Contra Costa County has a leadership program as well. Good stuff. And then again, we talked about TED Talks. There's some great TED Talks out of there. And lately, there's a lot of AI tutorials. And quite frankly, I think you really need to jump on that for your employees because it's going to give them a leg up. And there are some real economies of scale you can get by using AI. So the other thing that's really important in employee engagement is encouraging a culture of employee and team recognition. People like to be recognized. I will tell you that I'm amazed on what a simple thank you note can do for an employee. They hang it in their office or their cube, and years later, they still have it up. I used to put stars on reports that were given to me, kind of like A paper if it was really good. And I saw the stars hanging in their cubicles as well. They like to be recognized. The last job I was at, we took a blank board and we put poster paper up and we did an achievement board. And every time somebody finished a budget or closed the bank reconciliation for the month or whatever milestone it is to celebrate the success, it went on the board. So when people walked by it every day, they could see the achievements and they could see that somebody cared enough to put their achievements on the board. And the rule was anybody could write on there. And we even had the general manager write on our board when key milestones were met in finance, which was really nice. Host an appreciation event. Praise your employees in public. If you're in a very open area, tell them they did a great job and everybody around them is going to hear it. But never miss a chance to recognize them, and especially in their work setting. So get yourself out of your office if you're a supervisor and go over and talk to them and thank them. You also want to motivate excellence. And you can do that with the funniest things. I mean, do you know what your employees' favorite sports team is, or favorite color, or favorite flower? We used to have a demonstration garden right outside our department at the water district. And if I knew an employee was having a problem or a bad day, or I wanted to celebrate a success, it was real easy to give them a bouquet of flowers on their desk with no charge. And they loved it. So take those moments to be creative and have that recognition of employees. It makes a big difference. And the best thing you can do, you can mentor and coach your employee, because you're not the boss anymore, you're the coach. And you can say thank you and show them when they do stuff that's good, but hold them accountable when they don't. I used to call them mentoring moments, and they doesn't have to be adversarial. It's just identifying something that they probably should have done differently or better, and what they can do to improve upon it. And people are receptive to that. If you say it in a kind delivery, they know that they should have done better, and you can help them to get there next time. But show them that you care about them individually and the contribution they're going to make to the organization. And if you see them about ready to fall off a cliff, make sure you rescue them first. So when you have that performance evaluation, ask your employees, where's your next move in the next 2 to 3 years? And if they say, I want to be at the next level in this organization, a lot of them are not going to understand what that entails. So pull down the job description, highlight the skill sets they're going to need to even get to that interview, because they have to meet the minimum qualifications, and then give them goals in their annual performance eval that helps them get those minimum qualifications. So again, you're the coach. And they, on the other hand, have set their expectations and they know what that job is going to entail. So many times I've seen people think that they should promote up because they're supposed to climb that corporate ladder. They don't know what they're getting themselves into. And sometimes they don't like it when they get there. So this is a way of saying, hey, if that's what you want to do, let's see what you have to do to get there, what you're going to have to do in those daily work, because now you might be supervising where you're not now. It's not necessarily an easy part of the job. So start with that job description. And then after 6 months, ask them if they still think they want to be in that job. And if not, you can change course. But if they really do, give them more and let them take the car out for a test drive. And again, it's been my experience that the simplest things work the best and they're the least costly, except it takes some time. Thank you notes. You can get certificates off the internet these days, and you can fill in their name and the project they worked on and put it on their desk. People love this kind of stuff. So again, this is not so much fun and games anymore. This is a personal recognition with a personal handwritten note that your employee made your team or your life or the organization better. And they deserve to be recognized for that. But make sure that you just don't do it to your high achievers. You do it to everybody, because the message you want to send is that your coaching is equitable across your organization. It'll make a big difference to employees. So now we're going to go to the third polling question.
Okay. So I just launched poll 3. And Carol, you did have one question in the Q&A.
Okay.
And the question is, what about if it's mixed with A's and S's?
Most people are mixed with A's and S's, but the very first response that you have in that coin game is is the way you're going to respond to most ideas or situations. So if you got an A as your very first response, you're going to probably think everything's going to be okay with the idea. It's a good idea. It's going to work out. If you have an S as your first response, then it's like, yeah, let me think about it, because you want to make sure that it is a good idea and you want to make sure there's no holes in it. So if you have a huge mix, take your first response. That's the way you're first going to react. It's a good question.
Okay, I'm going to end poll and share results.
Good. Some of you have to catch up on your old time cartoons. Okay. So the role of the leadership in engagement. Remember I talked about 70%? That's what you have to worry about. So every time you see that sign now on the freeway, you can think about employee engagement and remember this class. So effective communication from leaders, we're going to do some reviews here. It's really important to communicate. Just don't communicate via emails or texts. You're really pulling your chances down that you're going to be fully understood and an effective communicator, because I truly believe that's still only 7% of the communication style. I know people do it a lot, and sometimes you need to document things, but hey, go make yourself a win-win and get out there and go talk to the employee and walk around. Transparency, let your employees know what's going on. Let them know the deadlines that are coming up the next month and who has too much on their plate and who doesn't, because hopefully that will encourage people that maybe have a lull in their workforce to actually volunteer to help out their coworker. But be transparent. Now, you don't have to be totally transparent, because boy, I filtered a lot of communication with my supervisors about a council in one of my jobs, because the council was toxic. And that's putting it nicely. And I didn't believe that the employees needed to know that. All they needed to know is what the council wanted and when they wanted it and why management had decided to give it to them. They didn't have to know all the other stuff going on behind the scenes. So be transparent. Don't be negatively transparent. And encourage regular feedback. Some people have those employee suggestion boxes. I just like to talk to people myself. If you do have employee suggestions, address it timely and tell your people why or why not you're embracing that suggestion. And I personally think we can learn a lot from 4-year-olds. I have a 4-year-old grandson, and it's great the amount of enthusiasm they have. But I will say that when my youngest daughter was 4, and I was being a super mom and multitasking in my kitchen, making dinner and listening to her, which she didn't buy, she said, "Mom, you're not listening to me." And she had me look at her, and she put her little hands on my face so that I couldn't move my head or do anything else. And she said, "Now you're listening to me, Mom." So you want to be that coworker or that supervisor that actually listens. If you're going to do management by walking around, leave your cell phone in your office so that you can actually listen and watch your employees, just like my 4-year-old. Practice these values because they're going to look to you as the role model. Are you transparent? Are you communicating? Are you communicating with body language, tone, and voice, written word? Are you setting a standard for the team to follow? Are you positive and inspiring engagement? And are you trying to cultivate a positive workplace? Do you go to their engagement activities? It's really important that you show up, even if you're really, really busy. And then I will say, hang in there, because this is not an easy job. But once you decide to go down that road, you know, it's a lot of work, but there are a lot of really good things that can come out of it. And you know you can do this. Polling question number 4.
All right. Just launched poll number 4. All right, I'm going to end the poll and share results.
You guys have to go watch Zorro. Okay. I hope you had fun with those. I like those much better than Gatsby 101 questions. So we're winding up now. It's really important to have regular check-ins with your people and to sustain the momentum. So remember, you only have 30% of your people engaged, but hey, in a baseball analogy, if I was hitting 300, I would be paid big bucks. So don't beat yourself up from the get-go. Just realize that is the statistic, but you could now have hopefully things in your toolbox to help change that. But this is a big job for you to take on as a supervisor or as an employee. So make sure you take regular vacations and delegate appropriately, which so many of us don't. And ask your staff, if you can't see it, what's your workload like? What do you need to contract out? What can you automate? And be timely with that. Don't let them get in the swamp, and then it's really hard to climb out of the swamp because there's just too much work. If you're going to go into an ERP, I'd strongly suggest you get help up front, because they can't do an extended ERP plus their own staff work, period, the end. They're going to need some assistance. But regular check-ins, and make them fun. Don't make them an hour, make them 45 minutes, so that you actually have 15 minutes to write down what you talked about, or maybe follow up. Do walking 101s. It gets both of you more energy at the end of it, and you'll find that you actually look forward to it. Plus, you get your exercise in for the day. Take them to coffee every once in a while for a 101, because you're showing them you care enough to do something a little different than just put them in your office with the door closed. And it's much more fun and enjoyable, which means you're more approachable, which means you're going to talk better and there's going to be more communication. But keep them short, because the meetings don't need to be real long. And that's one of our problems right now. When I retired, 50% of my day was in meetings. It's not fun. And then I had like 100 emails a day, which is not fun. So change it up. It will foster open dialogue. And if they find that you're listening, then they'll feel like they're being heard. But always be professional and always be calm. And if you're upset at something, never write an email and send it. You can write an email and save it or send it to your mentor or coach, but not to the employee until you've calmed down. You have to keep it in control. And finally, things change all the time. What do you think AI is going to do for us, guys? It's going to make things really even crazier. Although I will say, on the things I've used it for, it's actually pretty cool, and it can actually cut down on staff report time prep, and even some ideas with your PowerPoint presentations. So as the workplace evolves, just be strategic about it, embrace the good things, and see if you can contract out the bad, or find some way to make it palatable at least. But set some email rules. Don't have people respond to all if they don't need to. Keep your meetings shorter than an hour. I will challenge you to do that. And have some drop-in rules. When you're really busy, maybe instead of closing your door, get some sign that you put on the door saying, really busy right now, have a deadline at 10 a.m. People will honor that, and then they'll come back later. But then at least it looks like you're not shutting yourself off. So hang in there. You can do it. You can especially do it if you find members of the team that'll help you with the fun and games part. But it will make your place so much greater and so much more a pleasure to work and be in, because let's face it, we spend so much time at work. You want it to be a good experience for all. So thank you very much. And if you really want to embrace this, write to me at my email address, and I will send you a 2-page easy and quick and inexpensive ways to have employee engagement opportunities. I'd be happy to provide that with you. Whitney, do we have any other items in the chat?
Yeah, you do have a question from an anonymous attendee.
Ooh.
And it says, the question is, how do you keep staff motivated when you have management who is negative and makes it known that they don't like their staff?
I think what you have to do, there is a thing called delegating up. Um, and I would work on it from both ends. I would try to maybe watch management as well and see if there's anything that makes them smile, and then try to give them as many of those opportunities as possible. Invite them to your stuff, hoping that they'll get a clue after a while. Um, you can still have engagement even in your own little divisions by doing all the things we talked about today. You don't have to wait for a manager or supervisor to say it's okay to do those things. I would say the only thing you have to get permission for these days is some people get really weird on budget, so they don't necessarily want you to go out with your team to a escape house because they don't want that expenditure going through a city. But you can, like I said, you can do a lot of things on the cheap, and they mean just as much, if not more. So take it upon yourself to do those employee engagements as well. And then hopefully your supervisor or manager will see that your team is awesome and ask one day what in the heck you're doing. You can always train up as well as down.
Perfect. That was the only question in the chat and the Q&A.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you so much, you guys. It's hard not having a real audience because I can't see your body language, but I hope you enjoyed the hour, and thank you to Whitney and David for inviting me to speak today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Carol. And now I'm going to stop recording.
Okay.